My name's Darren West. I just found something in my garage. I think it's a miscarriage.
Pleasant Grove is a city located in Utah County, Utah, nestled in the north-central part of the state. The city is affectionately referred to as Utah's City of Trees, due to its lush and abundant tree population. It was first settled by Mormon pioneers in 1850 by a group led by William H. Adams, who established a fort and called it Battle Creek. It was later renamed Pleasant Grove, inspired by the grove and cottonwood trees where the early settlers held their meetings. Over time, the city diversified its economy, moving away from solely agriculture to other industries such as manufacturing, retail and services. In the latter half of the 20th century, the city saw significant residential development, transforming into a suburban community. Since then, Pleasant Grove has continued to thrive, with a blend of young families, professionals and retirees among its almost 40,000 residents. Each year the city holds events, with the most notable being Strawberry Days, one of the longest-running community celebrations in Utah. It's held each June and features parades, rodeos, carnival rides, and of course, strawberries. But on the 12th of April 2014, a dark shadow was cast over the city of Pleasant Grove. At about 10:30 a.m. that morning, the phone line buzzed at the 911 dispatch centre. When the operator picked up, a panicked man was on the other end of the line.
Pleasant Grove Police?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Can I have an officer come to this address?
And your name?
My name's Darren West. I just found something in my garage. I think it's a miscarriage.
Can you be more specific? What do you mean by a miscarriage you found?
I have no idea. Just please send an officer up here.
It sounds like you may need medical.
It's been wrapped up in a plastic bag and it stinks.
Okay, what is it?
It's a little baby.
After the phone call from Darren West, the 911 operator dispatched units to the home at 5330 East 200 North. When they pulled up outside the single-family home, they observed that the garage door was open. It appeared as though the family had been spring cleaning, with items strewn about the garage and boxes scattered on the floor. Darren was in a state of hysteria, sitting outside the home on the steps. He spoke with the responding officers.
You've been cleaning the garage.
Okay. Who lives here?
That's three.
1, 2, 3?
The double house, the basement and the upstairs are two different.
My two daughters live here.
He said that he was in the process of being released from prison and was moving back into the home. It was owned by his parents, and his three daughters, ages 13, 18 and 20, lived there. Darren said that before he went to prison, he had lived in the home with his three girls and his then wife, Megan Huntsman. But they had since broken up, and she had moved out of the home to a trailer in Salt Lake City about 3 years ago. She was living there with her new boyfriend, Jimmy Brady. Darren had been incarcerated for the past 8 years after being convicted of manufacturing methamphetamine. He was released in January and transferred to a halfway house in Salt Lake City, but he could now return home. That morning, Darren had gone to his old home to clean out the garage and make space for his return, as he planned to move back in there with his three daughters. His parents had come over to help him, and the first place they wanted to tackle was the garage. It had always been cluttered, with piles of boxes upon piles of boxes. They had a trailer parked out the front, and Darren wanted to find some items that they could take to the charity shop. While clearing out a section of the garage, Darren noticed a box tightly wrapped in duct tape. Curiosity piqued. He opened the box to find a white trash bag inside, which appeared to contain something. Carefully, he unwrapped the first bag, only to find another bag within it, also wrapped in duct tape. Darren ripped off the tape and opened up the second plastic bag. A foul odour immediately hit him, causing him to scrunch up his face in disgust. One of the neighbours had complained about a horrible smell coming from the garage just a few weeks earlier. To the neighbour, it smelt like the mounted deer head in the garage had gone rancid. But Darren would soon learn that it was something much more gruesome that had gone off. Peering inside the plastic bag, he was horrified to discover the lifeless body of a fully decomposed baby. After officers arrived at the home, Darren led them into the garage and pointed out the plastic bag containing the baby's body. He said that it was wrapped up in a towel and had a chemical smell to it, similar to iodine. Darren had also said that the baby's skin was yellow. Initially, the officers considered the possibility that it was a miscarried fetus and that Darren might have been mistaken. However, upon opening the bag and examining its contents, they observed what appeared to be a full-term baby, not a fetus. They needed confirmation, so they contacted the medical examiner's office, who arrived within minutes. By the time they arrived, officers had cordoned off the home, unsure if it was a crime scene or not. Regardless, a dead baby had been found, and they needed to determine its identity and what had happened. The baby had clearly been concealed deliberately, wrapped in plastic bags and duct tape, and hidden in a box. The medical examiner carefully removed the baby from the home, while more detectives were called to the scene. They obtained a search warrant to examine the rest of the garage, which was cluttered with boxes from floor to ceiling. They were searching for anything that could help them identify the baby, or how it ended up dead in the family's garage. As they began their search, Darren was determined to uncover the truth. Having been in prison for the past 8 years, he had no idea how a dead baby ended up in the garage. He considered the distressing possibility that one of his daughters may have secretly given birth. However, this thought was fleeting, as his daughters adamantly denied any knowledge of the baby. Seeking answers, Darren decided to call his ex-wife, Huntsman. After he confronted her, she broke down into tears and told him that the baby was his and that she had given birth when he was in prison. However, she said that the baby was stillborn.
Just had her on the phone. She said it was his.
And I just said, what the hell is this? What have you done? And I always found something. She goes, oh, you did?
Get them for it.
Don't call the police. Don't call the police. I'm going to get it.
So you said it was yours. Logically, is that true?
I don't know, man. I never knew.
Let's start off with, is it your wife or your girlfriend?
I'm still married to her, but...
Okay, so legally, according to the law, it's still your wife.
Yes, sir.
Okay, why don't you tell me what her name is?
Megan Huntsman. What happened is when I went to prison, she stuck around for 2 or 3 years and she took off.
But she is with a boyfriend now.
Where is she?
In West Valley somewhere.
While on the phone, Huntsman asked Darren not to call police, that she would come to the home herself and sort it out. But it was already far too late for that. In tandem with searching the garage, detectives tried to make contact with Megan Huntsman. Darren gave them her cell phone number.
Are you able to help us understand what's going on here? It was a miscarriage.
It was like 9 years ago when we first left.
And how far into your pregnancy were you?
Like 7 months. It was born, stillborn.
Okay. How soon can you come down here? Our detectives need to ask you some follow-up questions so that we can, rule out any kind of foul play.
Okay, that was
Okay, listen to me. I need you to stay at your residence. We're going to have a West Valley City officer come pick you up.
Megan Huntsman was born on the 26th of February, 1975 in Pleasant Grove. Her father was an industrial painter, while her mother worked in a grocery store, among other jobs. She was raised in the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints, and the family were very active members. Huntsman had lived a very routine life in small-town America, having sleepovers with her friends and going on hiking trips to the nearby canyon. While at Pleasant Grove High School, she had met Darren, and the couple began dating. After graduation, they were married. They had just turned 18 and they moved into the home that Darren's parents owned. Darren worked in construction, while Huntsman earned some extra money by babysitting and cleaning houses. The young couple soon started a family, welcoming 3 girls into the world: Sawyer, JC, and Darian. But the relationship turned sour, allegedly, when a violent streak in Darren emerged. This was something that the Huntsman family claimed, but something that Darren denied. Huntsman's mother, Joyce, later recalled that she kept everything in her life private, especially after she moved in with Darren. She stated, she never found the strength to stand up for herself. Then after Huntsman's father took his own life, she fell into a downward spiral. She began drinking heavily and taking drugs, particularly methamphetamine. But more trouble was just around the corner. In 2005, Darren was arrested in a drug operation. He had been purchasing large amounts of iodine, which is a precursor to making methamphetamine, from a livestock business in Ohio. He had been using a fake name and had been doing so for the past 3 years. After receiving the iodine, Darren gave them to another person. He had ordered a total of 84 pints through 7 orders, which could have made 28 ounces of meth. After his arrest, Darren told detectives that another man had paid him $250 for each shipment. During the Drug Enforcement Administration investigation, agents stopped by the family home and spoke with Megan Huntsman. During the search, they discovered phosphorus, another common meth precursor. Darren maintained his innocence and said that he had never had any intention to manufacture meth. But he ultimately pleaded guilty to 2 counts of possessing chemicals intended to be used in manufacturing the drug. Before he was sentenced, Huntsman had written a letter asking a federal judge to consider leniency at the sentencing. In the letter she wrote, "Darren is a remarkable man, husband, brother, son, son-in-law, friend, and father of our 3 beautiful daughters. Please, we need this guy to keep our family together." The rest of the family also came to his defence, with his sister Sarah writing her own letter to the court. She said that Darren was an amazing father who had worked at an excavation company for 11 years. Darren was ultimately sentenced to 9 years in prison, and from behind bars, he and Huntsman's relationship fell apart. In 2011, she moved out of the home and left her 3 daughters living there alone. 2 of them were now adults, and with the help of Darren's family, they were taken care of. Huntsman moved over to a trailer in Salt Lake City with her new boyfriend, Jimmy Brady. After the discovery of the baby in the garage, Megan Huntsman was picked up by police and taken to the police station. She was taken into the interrogation room by Detective Dan Beckstrom.
Well, you know why we're here, what we're here to talk about. Just start at the beginning and tell me what happened.
Well, we were doing drugs a lot. That's what he was in prison for. I got pregnant right before he left, and I really didn't know because I thought it was just stress and stuff.
He went to prison in 2006?
Yeah.
How far along were you when he
Like
went?
a couple months.
Where did you have the baby?
In the house, in the bathroom.
In the house that you and Darren lived in? Describe to me what happened.
Well, I was having a lot of pain that day. I didn't go to work. My kids were at school. I went in the bathroom and just sat there and then just pushed really hard. And I was blue and wasn't crying. And I was by myself and I didn't know what to do. And I couldn't get it to cry or anything.
Then what happened?
I got scared and I wrapped it up. Not being smart and calling you guys, I was in shock. It was stupid of me to do it.
What do you mean when you say you wrapped it up?
You remember? It was towels or garlic or something. I put it in the box.
What would you have done differently, looking back?
Called the cops and told them that I had a baby and that I couldn't get to breathe and have the paramedics and stuff come.
She said the same thing that she had said to Darren, that she had a stillbirth. She was visibly upset during the interrogation. The detective peppered her with more questions.
You said you tried to get it to breathe. What did you do?
Well, I tried just to clean his mouth out and stuff, and I couldn't get a response at all.
Okay.
I couldn't feel a heartbeat or anything.
Okay. So you cleaned the baby's mouth out, tried to get it to breathe, and then what?
I passed out for a little bit. I think I lost a lot of blood. And then I just remember my kids got home from school and I just told them I wasn't feeling them. And then I cleaned myself up and I went and got a box.
And then, as far as you know, unless someone else moved it, the baby's been in the box in the garage since that first year that Darren went to prison. Were you worried somebody else would find it when you guys were cleaning the garage?
Yeah.
And so what would you do to make sure that didn't happen?
I just kind of slide it and sweep around, and then set stuff on it and, so they knew that part was already clean.
While detectives at the home believed that the baby was full term, Detective Beckstrom wondered if they had been mistaken. Huntsman was very upset, and her story made some sense to him. With her husband going to prison, she was under an awful lot of stress at the time. He considered that possibly she wasn't in the right frame of mind, and when her baby was stillborn, she panicked. But the more that Detective Beckstrom spoke with Huntsman, the more suspicious he became. She refused to make eye contact with him in the interrogation room, which struck him as odd. He asked her a handful of more questions.
Do you remember if the baby was a boy or a girl? So, did anyone else know that you were pregnant?
I don't show at all.
Did you tell Darren?
No, I never.
Okay. Had you ever had any stillborn babies prior to that?
Miscarriages.
And on these miscarriages, did they all happen at home?
What happened at home?
Does your family have a history of these problems?
The miscarriages? Yeah. My grandma had a lot. I had an aunt that had a stillborn.
So there is a lot of this in your family. All right. Is there anything else that you think I should have asked you that I haven't asked you?
I don't think so.
Is there anything else that you want me to know?
No.
And we really want the right thing for this baby. Proper burial and closure for you and for your family. Your husband went to prison, you're raising the kids on your own, and you're overwhelmed, and I can understand that. I mean, Darren just found out that he had another kid that he didn't know about, so.
The detective then asked Huntsman what she thought closure looked like. She replied, burial. He then asked her if there was anything else. Her response was, me going to jail. The interrogation continued.
Well, it's clear that you think you should go to jail for this, that you recognize you've done something wrong. We haven't made any decisions like that. We're still just trying to put the story together at this point.
Detective Beckstrom found it strange that Megan Huntsman believed she could go to jail. If the baby were merely a stillborn, then no crime had been committed, other than the unlawful disposal of a body. The detective suspected that Huntsman had a guilty conscience, but he couldn't pinpoint the reason. Meanwhile, detectives continued their search at the home, and soon they uncovered the horrifying truth. The reality was far more gruesome than anybody could have ever imagined. While searching the cluttered garage, detectives came across another cardboard box in the same condition as the one that had contained the baby. It was sealed with duct tape. On the side, a label read, "Baby stuff, CCC Megan's." When they opened it, they found heavy packaging and something wrapped in a plastic bag. As they lifted the bag out, a grim stench overwhelmed them. A liquid was seeping through the bottom of the bag. Carefully they opened it, and were horrified to discover the remains of a second baby. Much like the first one, it appeared to be a full-term baby. The detectives at the crime scene immediately made contact with Detective Beckstrom, who was still interrogating Huntsman at the police station. He confronted Huntsman about the discovery, but wasn't prepared for her response.
We have investigators in the house right now. They found a second baby. Will you please tell me about that?
There's more. Hey, I'm sorry. I have hit every one of them, and he had to have known I was pregnant through most of them.
There's others? How many?
I'm not even sure. I was on so many drugs and stuff during it all, I can't even remember.
When?
All through the years.
According to Huntsman, there were other dead babies in the home, but she couldn't recall just how many. But Huntsman said that they were all stillborn.
If it's easier for you to remember, if we want to start after you had your first child, when you had the first miscarriage.
One, right after we moved in. I can't even remember. I remember when I had in the tub. They were all stillborn. Every one of them.
Were they full term?
No, I don't think.
Okay, so how many do you think will we find in the garage?
4.
Huntsman told the detective that the first stillborn baby was born after they moved into the home in 1996. The last one was just after Darren went to prison.
You put all 4 in the garage?
Yeah.
Did you keep them in the same place in the garage? What did you...
It was covered.
Okay, and so all 4 boxes are in the same place? Okay, well, I just want to be able to relay to the detectives what they're going to find. And so all 4
Yes.
children are in the cabinet in the garage?
Yes.
Okay. Why didn't you call for help?
I'm afraid of people knowing I'm pregnant.
I mean, this is Utah. It's not common for people to have a lot of kids.
Oh, because I was young. Because I was so young.
Several years later, though, when this happened, I mean, you're not so young.
I know. But like I said, the drugs, they mess with you. Bad.
So you're telling me that because you were on drugs, you weren't making good decisions?
Yeah, exactly.
Does it feel better to tell the truth?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, just a minute.
After learning that there were more babies hidden in the garage, Detective Beckstrom left the interrogation room and made contact with detectives at the home. While the search continued at the garage, so did the interrogation.
All right, we're almost done. We talked about a lot. I don't know yet. We haven't made those decisions because we're doing the search warrant still. Because of the seriousness of this, they are also going to obtain a search warrant for your house in West Valley. Is there anything at that house that we need to know about before we go up there?
For me, no. All that's up there is my clothes.
Okay.
The detectives were in the process of obtaining a search warrant for the rest of the home.
So you have the babies been in the garage the whole time?
I never moved them or anything. But yeah, they've been in the garage the whole time.
So
Yeah.
we're talking 8 years ago.
Yes.
I mean, you told me earlier that you put the boxes with the babies in them in the cabinet.
Yeah.
Did you ever take them out of that cabinet?
No.
I imagine in the last 9 years, stuff's been in and out of the carpet.
I think so, because I was just there a month or so ago getting my bed and stuff out of there, and I seen it sitting there.
Right. And so did anyone in the world know that that baby was in the garage? Okay.
Nobody never told us all.
Well, they're saying one of the boxes was on a stack of shelves next to the cabinet. Why would it be there?
Unless I moved it or something, but it's not thinking.
Do you know when that might have been?
Before I left, if I did. I mean, I haven't been in that house. Only once since I moved out.
By now, it was painfully clear to detectives that this case was much more complex than initially believed. It wasn't incomprehensible for a woman to conceal one pregnancy and then have a stillborn, but for that to happen multiple times, it seemed very implausible. Detective Beckstrom began to consider it very likely that something much more nefarious had happened, that Huntsman had hidden her pregnancies and then killed the babies after they were born.
I want to make sure that there's no more weight on your shoulders. Okay. When you have these babies,
Yes.
you said after they were born and they were blue and you try to get them to breathe. What would you do to try to get them to breathe?
Sometimes I was so scared,
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Sorry, like shake them, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
Did you have like the suction cup they used to clean out their mouths?
No, I just use my finger and stuff.
You described you had the one in the tub that you filled the tub and had.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah.
Was that baby alive when it was born?
I think it was. For a short time.
What happened?
Well, you'd think if I had a baby in the house, I'd just cry, so it would, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, you say you think it was for a short time. What was it moving? Did it start to breathe?
No, it wasn't free. I could see a little heartbeat and then it stopped.
Okay. For about how long?
Not very long at all.
Huntsman told the detectives that the baby she gave birth to in the bathtub had actually been born alive. She said that their heart only beat for a little while before it stopped. The detective was stunned. He thought that if Huntsman had have wanted the baby, she would have immediately called for help the moment she realised that something was wrong. Detective Beckstrom asked about the baby that was born after Darren went to prison. While Huntsman originally said that the baby was stillborn, she now said that the baby was breathing when they were born. The detective asked her about the two other babies. Huntsman said that one was born on the bed, while the other was born in the bathroom.
The one on the bed, when it was born, do you think it might have been alive for a short time as well?
It might have.
After Huntsman said that those two babies may have been born alive as well, the detective was stunned. The alarm bells in his head were now ringing, and he firmly believed that this wasn't some kind of tragic accident. Instead, Huntsman had killed the babies after they were born. He confronted Huntsman and asked whether she had killed them.
What we need is the truth.
I did one of them.
Which one?
Can't remember. No, I was just so scared. I was so on drugs so bad I choked it.
How did you choke it?
Yeah.
Do you think all four of these babies were alive when they were born?
I'm pretty sure one of them wasn't.
Okay. And did you choke the others?
Yes, I did.
And you put them in a towel, put them in garbage bags, and then put them in a box and put it in the garage.
Yes.
So one was dead when it was born, and the other three you choked. And why did you choke them?
I don't know. Scared. I was in shock.
Have you ever told anyone this?
No, I've never told a soul.
So when we run DNA tests, will they all be Darren's?
Yes, they will.
Detective Backstrom was right. Huntsman now told him that 3 of the babies were born alive and that she had strangled them to death. Over at the family's home, the search continued, and in the garage, detectives found the body of baby number 3. They were packaged up in a box much more secure than the other 2, with layers upon layers of duct tape. Once they opened it up, there was a plastic bag, but it was wrapped up in vinyl. When they opened that up, they found a baby's body wrapped up in a plastic bag and towel. The search pressed on, and in another cardboard box, detectives found a 4th body. They were found under 2 blankets and 2 bath towels in the bottom left corner of a cubby. But the grim findings didn't end there. While Huntsman had initially told Detective Backstrom that there were 4 dead babies in the home, detectives uncovered a 5th. They were found inside a cabinet on the east wall of the garage in a white apple box, a green hand towel, and a red and green blanket. The cabinet contained diapers, toilet paper, and plastic wrap. Detective Backstrom was notified by detectives at the scene about the 5th body.
But I'm concerned that you haven't told me everything. How many do you think there possibly could be?
Honestly, I don't know how many. 4 I can think of, but I don't.
Okay. They are up to 5. And so now that there's 5, are you still only certain that one of them was dead when it was born? And so the other 4 were alive?
There could be more. Like I said, I can't remember a damn thing.
How many do you think there would be?
I'd say 8 or 9.
Huntsman was now saying that there could have been 8 or 9 dead babies hidden away in the garage.
But I know there's no more than that. And I know there's none in the house. I mean, you'd smell them if they were in the house.
Right. Did the smell from the garage ever come in the house?
No.
It would just be out in the garage.
People said it was some smell, you know, like in the heat of the summer. We had cats and stuff, and I think it was always just blamed on that.
They would just leave it open?
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying Darren never knew?
No, what I told you, only me. I've kept this to myself for 18 years.
So I'm the only person that you've ever told?
Yes.
The line of questioning then shifted as Detective Backstrom began to probe Darren's involvement. Huntsman had mentioned something earlier in the interrogation that had piqued his interest.
When I talked to you earlier, you mentioned that Darren should have known. What do you mean by that? Did you tell her?
No. I don't know why. I think my mind was just so out of it, you know? All I focused on was the next fix. But how can you not know? How can you sleep with someone every night and not know that?
When we're talking about Darren knowing that you were pregnant because he's in your bed, those aren't miscarriages. And so did you just tell him that you miscarried?
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you told him that it was a miscarriage, he never asked what you did with the miscarriage.
While the interrogation continued, so did the search in the garage, and it wasn't long before a 6th body was found. This baby was discovered wrapped up in a sweater and stuffed inside a box in the same cabinet as baby number 5. But the search didn't end there, and detectives came across baby number 7. This baby was covered with pink and brown towels and placed in a large box inside a black garbage sack. Alongside the baby was discarded clothing, including women's underwear and bloody white gloves. Following the search in the garage, detectives began searching the interior of the home. In the master bedroom, they came across suspicious stains that appeared to have bled through the top of the mattress and into the box spring underneath. In the closet, They found tiny baby clothing and small booties. After the search was complete and detectives were satisfied they had found all of the babies, they turned their attention to the trailer where Huntsman was currently living. However, they found nothing else there other than Xanax, marijuana, and drug paraphernalia.
And you said you were certain that only one was stillborn, and that you strangled the rest.
Yes.
Well, I think I'm ready to take you upstairs then. And we're going to put you in a holding cell while we finish processing the scene. Okay?
Megan Huntsman was arrested and booked in at the Utah County Jail on 6 counts of murder. But detectives still needed to get to the bottom of Darren's involvement. They couldn't fathom how he couldn't have known that she was pregnant 7 times and that she had given birth in their home. He was brought in for questioning. While 7 babies were ultimately found, Darren only knew about the first one, as he had been the one to find them.
You're not in trouble right now. I'm just trying to understand everything that's happened. So she's saying that that baby was a miscarriage after you went in prison.
That's what she told me. Is that what she's still saying?
Yes. We did get a search warrant in the house, and there's more than one. And so, how many times was your wife pregnant?
I have 3 daughters, and I know of one other time that she had a miscarriage. I never even knew she was pregnant with 2 of my daughters until she was like 4 or 5 months along. And then she told me, I don't know, sir.
There's...
How many was there?
There was 7.
You are kidding me.
I'm not. She said that the first one was shortly after you moved into the house.
Oh my God.
And that the last one that she was pregnant by you before you went to prison.
Wait, so she says they're all mine?
That's what she says. And that's why I'm glad you're here, because I would have thought that if she was pregnant 7 times in the 10-year period that you lived in that house, that surely you would have known.
Holy
Darren was very visibly distraught by the grim revelation. He put his head to his hands and began to cry.
Your wife has admitted to some crimes, to some horrible things. She admits that she killed some of them after they were born. Like I said, she's being completely honest. And I really wish you were too.
What do you want me to say? I didn't know she was killing kids, and I didn't know she was put in boxes. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how she could give birth and then... I don't know.
Were you there when any of these were born?
No, sir. No, sir. I swear.
What we want to do is we want to do what's right. We want to have closure for these children. We want to have closure for your kids that are alive. For these babies' grandparents. I mean, these babies were in a garage for years.
Yeah, I never knew that, though. I never knew that.
But Detective Brackstrom still couldn't fathom Darren had no idea that his wife was pregnant. It was clear that he was looking at Darren as a suspect, and he requested an attorney, bringing an end to the interrogation. But what struck the detectives as strange was that if Darren had known about the babies in the garage, why would he have cleaned the garage just after he was released from prison? He would have put himself at risk of going back to prison, so maybe Darren was being truthful. Maybe he really didn't know anything about the pregnancies or the dead babies. Darren was released from custody and the investigation continued, with Huntsman behind bars. The evidence collected from the garage was transported to the lab to be analysed, including the boxes that contained the babies, as well as the plastic bags and the duct tape. Every single fingerprint came back as a match to Huntsman, and Darren's DNA and fingerprints were not found on any of the items. By now, all 7 of the bodies had been transported to the medical examiner's office, where DNA was being examined and the bones were being analysed. Detectives wanted to try and figure out who the father was, whether it was Darren or somebody else, and how and when the babies had died. By now, detectives had determined that Darren wasn't a suspect in the case. They believed that Huntsman had hidden her pregnancies even from him, and had then killed the babies after they were born alone, and hid them alone. Both Darren and Huntsman had told detectives that with their 3 living daughters, she had even hidden those pregnancies. Darren didn't even know that his wife was pregnant until she was giving birth at the hospital. After Huntsman's arrest, police released a statement to the public announcing, during the course of the investigation, information was obtained that over a 10-year period, a 39-year-old woman gave birth to the infants and then killed them. The woman was booked into the Utah County Jail on 6 counts of murder. Megan Huntsman appeared in court, where she was formally charged with 6 counts of first-degree murder. Her bail was set at $6 million, $1 million for each baby. Despite the severity of the charges, if Huntsman were convicted, she couldn't face the death penalty. Between 1996 and 2006, when the murders were committed, Utah law did not consider killing a child one of the aggravating factors that could make somebody eligible for the death penalty. This changed in 2007, making murder a capital offence if the victim was younger than 14. Huntsman obtained a defence attorney, Doug Thompson, who commented after the court hearing, "She seems fine, but I don't really want to get into any of that." The news of the murders stunned the community of Pleasant Grove. It's a small town, with just a few taverns and more than a dozen churches, not the expected scene for such a horrific crime. The mayor, Mike Daniels, referred to the city as suburban America, if not smaller. Reporters flocked to the neighbourhood to get some comments from the family's neighbours. They all said that the family mostly kept to themselves and just seemed like your average family. Huntsman appeared to be quiet, and some said that while they tried to be friendly with her, she didn't seem to want to reciprocate. Some said they noticed Huntsman's weight fluctuating over the years, with her switching between baggy and tight clothing. But still, none of them ever realised that she was hiding a pregnancy. One of the neighbours, Sandy Wall, questioned why Huntsman killed the 7 babies, especially considering her youngest daughter was born during the same decade as the murders. Neighbours Aaron and Kathy Hawker stated,
"Quite frankly, I'm still in a state of shock. We were wondering what the heck is going on."
Yeah, we were worried about her because we could see that she was not looking in good health. And we were worried about the children that lived there with her. Her 3 daughters lived there.
She always looked kind of slim. To have this many babies full term, it's like, where were they?
Huntsman's family were just as shocked as the rest of the locals. Her uncle, Larry, commented, "We are still in the dark about most of this stuff. We have no idea why she did this. How do you go through that many pregnancies without anyone knowing it?" As the reports continued to dominate the headlines, Cheryl Meyer, a psychology professor at Ohio's Wright State University, shared her input. She said that some women who kill their newborn babies hide or deny the pregnancy and then dispose of the baby after it's born. But she said more often than not, these women are typically teenagers who don't repeat the act. They're mostly scared and think that it's the only solution, instead of telling a relative or a parent. Mayer stated, "They're not 30-year-old women who can go and have an abortion." In fact, various states, including Utah, have safe haven laws that allow mothers to drop off unwanted newborns to authorities with no questions asked. The Newborn Safe Haven program had come as a result of Bill HB 12 that was approved in 2001. The mother is free to remain anonymous as long as the child hasn't been subject to any abuse or neglect. They can drop their newborn babies off at a hospital that is open 24 hours a day, and the baby needs to be 3 days old or younger. However, the hospital wouldn't turn away a baby that is a couple of days older. Once the baby has been checked out by doctors, the hospital is then supposed to contact the state's Department of Child and Family Services, which will then place the baby in the state's foster care program until it can be adopted. Since it came into law in Utah, the Safe Haven program hadn't been used too often. It averaged around 1 or 2 babies a year that were left at the hospital. As the babies continued being examined, one of the family's neighbours, Aaron Hawker, had some comments. He said that Darren had shared with him his belief that the babies weren't actually his, and that they may have been born as a result of an extramarital affair. It would have made sense, since Huntsman and he had 3 perfectly healthy children. Why else would she feel the need to conceal these pregnancies instead of giving birth or having an abortion? After the comments, speculation began to swirl that Huntsman had actually given birth to the babies during an affair, possibly when Darren was incarcerated. After Darren went to prison, his parents told Huntsman that she could continue living in the home which they owned, but there were conditions. She was told that she needed to remain faithful to Darren, and she could stay there. However, the reason that Huntsman eventually moved out was because they discovered that she had been having an affair. She was forced to leave the home, and she left their 3 children behind. After the 7 bodies were transported to Utah Chief Medical Examiner Todd Gray, he encountered a significant challenge. The bodies were so badly decomposed that distinguishing features were unrecognisable, and determining the genders was impossible. To advance the investigation, Gray called in a forensic anthropologist to examine the skeletal structures, which could help determine the ages of the deceased. He noted, "We'll be working with the crime lab to determine what, if any, samples will be appropriate for DNA analysis. I certainly couldn't say right now whether or not DNA is recoverable and the condition of that DNA." Despite the severe decomposition, some DNA was successfully extracted. However, the investigation faced another hurdle. None of the labs in Utah were equipped to analyse DNA recovered from such tiny, fragile corpses. A decision was made to enlist the help of the FBI for DNA analysis. In July, it was revealed that DNA testing had confirmed that Darren was the biological father of all 7 of the dead babies. The testing had also determined that 5 of the babies were girls and 2 of them were boys, and that all of them were full term. Because of the condition of the remains, however, the cause of death couldn't be determined, nor could a time of death be narrowed down. Since Darren and Huntsman were married, and they had 3 children, the question still remained as to why. But Megan Huntsman herself would reveal a motivation. According to Huntsman, at the time of her pregnancies, she had been addicted to methamphetamine and other drugs. She said to detectives that she didn't want to deal with the responsibility of having more children. She had continued to abuse drugs throughout the pregnancies, and possibly believed that her actions would result in miscarriages, but clearly that wasn't the case. Police Captain Mike Roberts commented, "It was completely selfish. She was high on drugs and didn't want the babies or the responsibility. That was her priority at the time." He said that Huntsman had told detectives that she needed money to fund her drug addiction, and that the babies would take away from that money. He said of her comments, "There wasn't a lot of remorse. It was more like a job interview than anything. There was no emotion in what she said. She just gave the facts of what had happened." Megan Huntsman appeared in court on the 8th of December, where it was revealed that a plea bargain was in the talks. She told the judge that she waived her right to a preliminary hearing. If those talks were to break down, however, Huntsman would be facing a murder trial. She returned to court again on the 12th of February and sat alongside her defence team. When asked for her plea, she told the judge that she was guilty. Huntsman's guilty plea came as part of a deal which meant she could have her minimum sentence reduced to 5 years. However, Utah County Attorney Jeff Booman said that he would be shocked if she ever got out of prison. Huntsman returned to court on the 20th of April to be sentenced. Prosecutors took the unusual step of calling a detective to the witness stand. Detective Dan Beckstrom detailed some facts of the case, including the search of the garage and the discovery of the bodies. He stated, "She said when she had the babies, she would hold it for a short time, not more than a minute or two. She says that none of the babies were alive more than a minute or two, and then she used her thumbs." He said that Huntsman would hold them for a couple of moments to make sure she couldn't feel a heartbeat. Family members sobbed in the courtroom. Huntsman had written a statement which was read aloud by her defence attorney, Anthony Howell. She wiped tears from her eyes as he read, "I honestly don't know what caused me to be so low that I could do these terrible things, or even how I was able to carry out these actions all by myself. I know I didn't feel strong enough to be a mother to those tiny babies, and in some small way, I wanted to help them avoid the terrible life I would have given them." Huntsman and Darren's children also provided statements that were read aloud by her sister Jamie. They described their mother as always smiling and laughing, before adding, "This is not the mom I know. I remember the mom I know, the one that made dinner for us every night, cleaned our house, and loved not only her kids, but kids in general." It was a sharp contrast to the gruesome facts of the case. During the hearing, the prosecutor said that Huntsman had given birth at home twice, when other people were in the home. After they were born, she strangled them with her hands. He stated, "She made sure the bathroom or the bedroom was cleaned before anyone got home, and the baby was wrapped up quickly and thoroughly and stored in the garage before anyone would know. Over the years, she could smell their decomposing bodies in the garage, and so could the neighbours, but she never moved them." He then referred to Huntsman as the most prolific serial killer at Utah State Prison. Because of the plea deal, Judge Darrell McDade could hand down a more lenient sentence. He addressed Huntsman and said that he had heard about the case before it came to his courtroom, and that he hoped he wouldn't be assigned to it. He stated, "I really thought I'd seen it all until this case came along." He then sentenced Megan Huntsman to up to life in prison. The judge said that he went beyond what was called for in the plea deal because he was so repulsed by the killings. Megan Huntsman must serve 49 years in prison before she is eligible for parole. Her first parole hearing is scheduled for April of 2064. Well, besties, that is it for this episode of Morbidology. As always, thank you so much for listening, and I'd like to say a massive thank you to my newest supporters up on Patreon, Sophia, Mary, and Sarah. You can join us up on Patreon for as little as $1 a month, and there are absolutely no obligations. You can cancel your subscription at any time. Patreon really is fantastic for independent podcasters. And in exchange for your support, I upload ad-free and early release episodes of Morbidology, bonus episodes of Morbidology Plus that are on the regular podcast platforms. Behind the scenes, and I also send out a handwritten thank you card along with some cool exclusive merch. If you'd like to support the show in another way, please consider leaving me a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you may be listening. Remember to check us out at morbidology.com for more information about this episode and to read some true crime articles. Until next time, take care of yourselves, stay safe, and have an amazing week.